Yo, what's happening, everybody? It's the boy Sim and J, and this video is gonna be a little bit different, kind of like the coffee one, I guess, but in the sense that it's a rant, but it's just something that was on my mind, and I feel like it's good enough to like turn into an actual video because I think this is a good enough topic for discussion, right? But I'm a little annoyed that uh yeah, people keep thinking I make manga. I don't make manga. I make American comic books. And like I think we need to have a dialogue on the wider indie space when it comes to this whole like what is a comic book, what's a manga or a webtoon, like a vertical scroll format type of book or series. And honestly, the ironic similarities amongst them, and of course the striking differences. But at the end of the day, they're still just different mediums of reading. I don't know why the fuck is such a crazy super big deal for things to be so differentiated outside of like, I guess I was suppose different cultures, right? But if we're talking about the West, right? I mean, you know, I have a friend that's working on a webtoon right now. I have friends that have made webtoons and they transferred over to comic books, which is literally just the same thing. It's just formatted differently, right? Um, I don't get like what the big deal is that everybody wants to or needs to make manga. Like, I'm an African American in America. Uh, I don't have any desire to try to emulate or replicate every little aspect of manga. And when I say that, I really don't mean that to be disrespectful or offensive, like seriously, right? Because at this point y'all should know, right? If I wanted to be, I would let you know. But I don't want to be disrespectful or offensive to those who indulge in that, who enjoy the Japanese culture through and through, to where it super heavily influences their works. That's Yeah. Don't misinterpret me on that. It's more like I don't wish to be lumped in with that crowd because that's simply not what I do. My characters do seem like they're anime characters, I suppose, but no, it's just that's not the case. And I actually have a bunch of different like examples and arguments that I'm about to bring up, such as this is a rant, so this ain't structured, so excuse me y'all, I'm gonna have to like put pictures up here or some shit so y'all can really see. But like my biggest art style inspirations, like just to give you an example of how much deeper this shit can go for creator to creator. This is not just some cut and dry science that others may or may not have told y'all in the past. But now that I'm starting to find my voice on the wider indie space on YouTube, y'all really have to hear me out, okay? So, for instance, right, I've said this for 5 years straight now, but it's time to actually put this in perspective, okay, y'all? I am heavily inspired, like artistically, by um, Nolan Obena. He's the art director for Generator Rex, right? So his art would technically be one of the biggest inspirations for me artistically, like design wise, all of that. There's also Glenn Murakami. He is the art director for, Ben 10. And I mean like all of Ben 10 outside of, I think, Omniverse. The guy for that, also the character designer, is Derek J. Wyatt. God rest his soul. He passed away a few years ago. And of course, my goat, Akira Toriyama. You know, God rest his soul. He died a few months ago. Um, and that's just like the baseline if we're talking about art. Do you know how much further I can take this? Like when we talk about character designs, if we go into the realm of the design of characters, specifically mine, we have Marvel, DC, Image Comics characters to go into, right? Um there's also like specific things I feel like I do when it comes to the dialogue of the characters, especially in Black Blaze. I would you could definitely argue like shonen type trope stuff in Gravity 6 for certain. I'm not saying it's just 100% cut and dry that, but it can be argued, it can be noticed, I feel like, because my intention with Gravity 6 was to be more of a manga comic book hybrid fusion in terms of its tone and presentation, right? And since it's an introductory arc where I'm just now introducing you to this world I've crafted and these characters, you know, certain things I just went and ran with because I know they work. You know, the coming of age angle, the kid that's still in high school training, getting better at his craft as a superhero and his journey and his mission and stuff. But I mean, honestly, it's in Spider-Man, it's in Invincible, it's in Superman's origin story. It's in so many superheroes origin stories. Just like if you just want to bring up My Hero Academia, that's one manga example. And I only purposely chose that because that's a superhero series. We could easily argue this for Naruto, part one specifically. We could argue this for Yu Yu Hakusho. We could argue this for Bleach. It's the same type of thing. It's the same character archetype. The character that has like the secret identity, or they're a superhero, but they also maintain or try to balance a normal life while also, you know, being this superpowered being. Literally, no matter what culture, right, you're coming from, it's only so many ways you're writing a specific kind of protagonist for these kinds of stories, right? Black Blaze is way different in terms of its tone and subject matter because it's covering war and themes of a lot of other things I really don't want to get into, right? We'll just say like abuse and stuff like that when it comes to certain relationships and stuff. Y'all, you if you read the comic, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, bro, I'm gonna leave the links at the end of this video, however long it's gonna be. Check that out. But anyway, just to give you an example, right? Black Blaze is it starts out, think it's Naruto's war arc at the start. It's the Tournament of Power at the start. It's the Invincible, not the Invincible, my bad. The Viltrumite War, for those who know, you know, at the start, right? And my characters are all a part of very differing factions because they're basically all racist towards one another, they're xenophobic towards one another, they're indifferent towards one another. And one of the biggest representations that I chose that I felt worked, right? Because this comes from what I see in real life. You know how different countries have different flags, right? And every flag looks different. Then you have like hell, Avatar: The Last Airbender. The four nations have their four elements they've been, and they have four different insignias and symbols that represent their countrymen, their people, right? Their abilities. So the same thing would apply for Black Blaze in terms of factions, especially in warfare. It's very important. Like there's different defense regiments, there's different companies of fleets and warships and things of that nature, right? So to differentiate themselves from one another, you know, because this is stuff that happens. Think about the American military, right? Think about the Allied forces. Think about how we have, we can work with the France and the Brits and stuff like that, but we all have different flags and different regiments and things like that, right? Or we can take it a step further, the MPs and then the Scout Regiment and Attack on Titan. They come from the same country, right? Eldia, right? But there's different factions within this faction. So I'm just using that as an example when we touching on, like, I'm basically getting to symbolism at this point, right? So think about this: the Magnian people, they have these flame symbols. And the Phyrexionians, they have something very similar, but it is different. And the color scheme is usually more yellow or vermilion color, whereas Magnians is usually strictly red. Then you even have the Phoenix Fighters. They have the Phoenix symbol, which is supposed to represent a whole level of, like, different level of hierarchy and power within their military ranks. Then you have the Iceronians with a simple diamond to represent their, you know, ice kingdom or whatever. And that's just to show off a few of, like, this particular part of what I'm talking about. But to get back to my main point, right? I say all of this to say, um, why is it so difficult for people to just make what they want to make without all these crazy ass labels? When at the end of the day, it's still a book with, with pictures in it that you're trying to tell a story, some kind of a message. You know what I mean? Now, I know that's a little bit ironic because I started this video out really prefacing that, hey, I make an American comic, which I do. But my problem really is coming from the fact that I have been in a predominantly manga brained space for 5 years of my life now. And the reason it's becoming tiresome is not to the point of there's nobody that deserves or has good work out here, right? Like, it has a solid fan base around it. No, 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 no. It's more to the point of what happened to people wanting to make superheroes? What happened to people wanting to make, you know, like Marvel and DC, in all honesty, in my opinion, it's dying. It's not, they're creatively bankrupt. They're like, for me, I've been done with them forever now. I've been done with them for 3, 4, 5 years. Like, I only go back to, like, the older cartoons, a specific set of runs that I enjoyed, or, like phase one through like three of the MCU is what I would consider really solid Marvel content. And most of the cartoons outside of what was the other one? I can't remember that one Avengers cartoon. I'll put it up on the screen. But yeah, I just don't think people really grasp the importance of a series like Invincible, right? I'm going to make this about Invincible for just a second, and then I'm going to bring up examples from my work and another person's work, or actually, it's a team of people's work, because I respect them, and they took the inspo from Invincible and X-Men, and they took it in a very unique, original, like, direction. But you can definitely see their inspiration there, and they wore it on their sleeve. They didn't lie or hide behind it like so many other creators in this space like to do, when they should have polished their ideas a little bit more. But that's a topic for another day. Now, the reason that I'm speaking on Invincible in such a high regard is that it's quite literally just what manga is. Now, hear me out. It tells a story of a boy that has to go on a journey of self discovery, coming of age, taking up a position that he is denying, so imposter syndrome, also lacking of acceptance of his heritage, nature versus nurture, and understanding that sometimes the hard and difficult choices must be made to save the many instead of the few. These are just a few themes and things that I picked up personally from Invincible. And there is no excuses that can be made for those who have not read it yet, that float around this space, or at least watch the show. And the reason I come off maybe abrasively when I say this is simply because it tells an overarching story from beginning, middle, and end. No spin-offs, no extras, no nothing outside of, I think, a Battle Beast prequel series. And what I'm getting at with that is simply the consistency and no status quo resets can be done in American comics. It actually has been getting done for, let's just say, the last 30, almost 40 years, if we count Image, IDW, Dark Horse, just to name a few. Or even smaller companies like Antarctic Press, right? So why why am I harping on the whole superhero thing and all that? It's because superheroes in America is what you know, the Gokus and Dekus and One Punch Mans and Monkey D. Luffy's and Naruto's are to Japan, right? That's what superheroes are to us. And I feel like they've been around long enough now to where their formulas, their storytelling can be done in so many different ways now that we still have not explored yet. And everybody is just doing this. I don't want to sound rude or disrespectful, especially to anybody I'm associated with, but like, this is just my opinion. This cop out or this fad, this trendy shit where they have to make a manga because they grew up watching Naruto and Bleach and Dragon Ball and nothing else. I'm just saying, like, think about some of your favorite mangaka for instance, right? Gege Yakutami, you know, creator of JJK, and Tatsuki Fujimoto, creator of Chainsaw Man and Fire Punch. They they both they both have heavy inspirations from like American media. You know, fucking Gege's obsession through Itadori for Jennifer Lawrence, and then fucking that one scene, plus the way the public service defense people, they dress like they're the fucking Reservoir Dogs, and Fujimoto has went on record saying that he really likes that shit, plus a whole bunch of other stuff. So just when I point that out, right, there is a multitude, there is a massive, infinite amount of inspiration that you can put into your works, but so many in this fucking space. It's quite heartbreaking and disappointing, right? They just go with a handful of things they grew up on or watched, slap it together, plagiarize for a lot of them, like blatantly, remorselessly, carelessly, just plagiarize, and they call it some original shit. And usually art carries and saves these kinds of people. I'm speaking indirectly, purposefully. I don't want no beef or no smoke with no other people. I'm just trying to give my thoughts on this stuff because I don't understand what happened to superheroes, what happened to a format that's, I don't want to sound like you know, some sort of a xenophobe, some sort of a hater, some sort of a, you know, I'm just, these are just my thoughts, man, and I felt it would make some good content. Like what happened to the patriotism? What happened to being able to take everything and make it into something special, something different, you know? Cause I'm not about to sit up and act like I don't wear my inspirations on my sleeve. Fucking Akido has Goku's hairstyle the entire first arc to pay homage to Dragon Ball. His name is Akito Star. Because he's part Japanese and part American. Um, but then, like, there's Russian characters in there. There's also a gay character for that representation thing, but it's also to one up all those creators that think a gay character, their that their character is just their character because they're gay, instead of them just being a cool character that happens to be gay, right? Mind you, I'm a straight heterosexual male. I'm just saying, these are the types of things I wish to see other people explore in terms of concept, not the gay thing, but you know, just widening your horizons beyond a specific or certain point, you know. um Mind you, I'm pretty sure this video is going to get me scrutinized, not to mention like I've gotten scrutiny in the past for my creations. People just, oh, it's just Star Wars and Dragon Ball, because I openly admitted that I'm heavily inspired by Star Wars and Dragon Ball. You know, space warfare, big brawlic, powerful ass niggas throwing energy blasts, blowing up moons and planets and threatening stars. I just always thought that kind of stuff was cool. But if you actually read my work, it's much deeper than that. It's different because it's like it's about warfare. It's about the losses and the struggles that come with that. You know, it's not just about chatty brawlic ass aliens doing chatty brawlic shit. Even though I ain't gonna lie, I like the chatty brawlic shit I threw in there. It's pretty cool to me, and other people kind of vibing with it now too. So that makes me happy. But once again, my roots, especially Gravity 6 as of late, they're heavily comic book focused. Like the costumes that my character's wearing right now. How many anime do you see where characters have symbols this striking? Even though yes, they are simplistic, I won't lie, right? But they have symbols that are this striking outside of maybe Goku, you know, with his different kanjis. Then you have Naruto with the Uzumaki symbol, or Sasuke with the Uchiha symbol. I guess you could say Bleach with their what are those things called? I forget. The passes they got in between to take them in between the Precipice World and the Seirete. Um, so you know, little stuff like that. But just think about this too. Like for instance, the way superheroes are handled in One Punch Man and My Hero Academia, like none of them have a logo. Like Blast, literally, and this is there's nothing wrong with it. This is just design choices these creators made. I'm just saying, simple little stuff like that can get overlooked when it can really help your character become an icon or stand out. You know, these are things I would love to see get more implemented into you know, people's works and characters. No, nobody got to listen to my ass. This is just a rant. You feel me? This is also me once again clearing the air. I do not make manga. I do not make manhwa. I don't make manfra. I don't fucking make that mana shit. Okay? I make comic books that are inspired by Saturday morning cartoons, Star Wars, Dragon Ball, a lot of other anime, in all honesty, Marvel and DC and like Image Comics media, movies, stuff I went through in my life or currently is going through. You know, this is how this goes, guys. There is no limit to what you can be inspired by to put in your work. And I feel like the silly ass divide of comic book writers and artists and readers, right? That community, those elitists that are basically like they got tribalism mind states, separatist mind states, right? Where they try to separate and differentiate heavily, like there's these really insane, massive, super big differences, right? When it's really down to like certain subject matter, certain politics that are always going to be covered. You know, it's kind of a myth that there was never any politics in comics. You know, when it's too preachy or in your face, I understand that, but like, you know, that is a big difference. That's a big signifier of things being different, because the way that Japanese manga and stuff covers politics or whatever is quite different than how we do it, because ours is kind of like more directly on the nose, especially when it's not very solid or well written types of narratives. But also the same thing I just said about the comic book space as a whole, the indie to the elite grandiose market, however you want to look at it, whatever you want to label it as, it can be said about the manga space as well. That shit really needs to stop. Like friendly competition and debates and arguments, I'm all there for it. It's cool, whatever. But when it comes to the point to where you literally are going out of your way to tell everybody and they fucking mama that the shit you're into completely shits, pisses, screams, and slams, and it's just so much superior and better written than anything Marvel and DC or Image or any other comic could produce. It's really lame and corny, and you should really go the fuck outside, breathe some air, touch grass, maybe talk to a guy or a girl, right? Also, the same thing once again can be flipped on his head and said about the comic space. because they're just as fucking toxic, especially when we talking about power scaling and crossover debating and stuff. They're super fucking annoying with that. I think they're worse than the manga and anime guys, right? But I say all of this once again to say that um, it's just a little disappointing that on both sides there seems to be limitations, right? Like I know it seemed like I kind of was just attacking or ragging on or just speaking on all the manga people for the longest time, but once again the comics people, they can be put under the same critical lens. Like there's always some drama in comics gate. I always see it. I float around it because I'm not in it and I don't really care because they got their own little gate that they now keep because you have to have a certain skill level and this and that, plus their political beliefs. Not to mention, there's also like um, a lot of them used to work at bigger companies before they said, "Oh well, I don't fuck with y'all no more. I'm gonna go to Comics Gate." Basically, like image boys or wannabe image boys, like 2.0, right? Um, but yeah, I think that's about it. I don't really have much else to say. I'll say it again. You know, I don't I don't like being labeled as a manga because right now in this space, right? In the wider space too, like people that have actually made it a little bit bigger, or like if we're talking about the actual big leagues and Shonen Jump and stuff, I just it's difficult for me because one, my biggest indications of like my artwork to me are my character designs and the clothing that they wear and how I try to present them. These characters, like for instance, if they see a naked fucking female, their nose isn't gonna bleed, man. They're not gonna pass out and fucking faint because they seen a naked girl. um they're not about to sit up and try to talk no jutsu. They're gonna be fighting you and debating you. Like their ideologies and physicalities are literally gonna be clashing. Of course, this stuff happens in comics and manga, but I'm just saying the way it's usually portrayed in comics is that there is a philosophical and psychological difference between this good guy or character A and character B, right? And as they're fighting, there isn't just these big breaks of characters just sitting up talking to one another, trying to talk no jutsu this guy down from being evil or trying to understand him. It's more like, okay, we've already talked this shit out. You're not gonna change. I have to kill you. Like perfect example, Invincible versus Conquest. If you know, you know. Also, prime example again, Invincible is an indie book. It's indie. Yes, it did reach like big heights because it started out at Image, right? But it still is a creator owned book and it's a superhero comic made in America by one writer. It's one guy's idea put onto the canvas for 144 issues of fucking pure peak. Why can't more people use Robert Kirkman's rubric, right? Since, there's people out here, not going to say any more names, but that like to talk about rubrics, right? And formulas to follow and steps to follow. First of all, let me just throw this out there. There is no one way to craft your own narrative. There are formulas. There are three act structures. There are things such as Chekhov's guns. There are things like that exist that can always and be universally used to help you execute crafting a much better and tightly written, and entertaining narrative. But in the same token, when the ball really gets going, it's up to you. It's your decision to make that makes or breaks the story, not the readers, not the fan base, none of that. They are the supporters. They are those you should listen to if they are constructive and helpful, and especially if they really like your story. They're gonna have a different level of insight than you may or may not even be privy to as your story progresses, right? And they keep up with it. I will say that, but in the same token, you make or break your story's success. From if you're the artist or you're just a writer and you're paying a solid artist or anything of that nature. or you make a character say or do this, that can make or break your series, right? And in Invincible, there are ups and downs, but for the most part, it's nothing but a bunch of highs. And the lows that the characters are put through, they forever change and grow the characters. Now, I'm speaking on this again because, once again, it's like the most beautiful and perfect example of a masterfully written narrative about a superhero with a beginning, middle, and end, and that's it. It had what it says what it has to say. It doesn't reset. It doesn't reboot. It doesn't do any of that. So if Invincible can do it, right? Why can't other creators? Because that's what I'm aiming to do. And there's also another comic that I trended with, that I'd like to speak about for just a brief moment on here before I wrap this little rant up. It's called Infinite Evolution. It's created by a dude named Far Far Out on Instagram and Scanova on Instagram. They also go by Void Visions on Global Comics and Webtoon. So check them out. You might end up seeing me review them one of these days. I recently marathoned with a couple of friends of mine in my Discord the entirety of what they have released on Webtoon. And holy shit, it's so solidly written. It's about this kid named James Raven who gets his awakening, as it's called, where this random meteorite showed up on Earth one day, and now most of the population are starting to mutate and become these superpowered beings. And basically, it's your typical superhero story. And until the kids go to school to learn their powers, there's a school for the characters to learn how to use their abilities. And the first thing that comes to mind is like My Hero Academia, X-Men, because also people might not know this, Kohei Horikoshi was heavily inspired by like Spider-Man and X-Men during the creation of My Hero Academia. So another prime example, no matter how you guys feel about how it ended or not, of people taking these inspirations and going with this formula but creating their own thing out of it. To varying degrees of success is irrelevant. It still bolsters my argument that many, many more people could use this route, because honestly, the superhero medium is a lot easier and more malleable to write and draw in than trying to come up with this super over explained complex power system and new way this world works and this and that. Like, no offense or disrespect to anybody that does this, right? But I'm saying Hunter x Hunter can never be like Marvel or DC, because Hunter x Hunter has a specific set of rules that cannot be changed or broken unless it's within the confines of how contracts work with Nin. Whereas things can always be tweaked and changed for better or for worse with specific things that happen in Marvel and DC due to power systems being massively, vastly variegated. You have magic users, you have super biologically enhanced beings, you have aliens with natural gifts, you have super geniuses with augmentations or enhancements to their intellect or their bodies through science or machinery. These are the kinds of concepts that can be explored on a massively, almost infinitely different degree. Unless manga is like that as well, because there are outliers. You have things like that in My Hero Academia. You have things like that, especially in One Punch Man, which is another superhero series in Japan. You have things like that in Dragon Ball Z. Bulma fucking created time travel in a series where she just wanted a fucking boyfriend at the start of her series, dude. So, once again, I say all of this to say you guys can be way more original, and I think, I'm not trying to make this sound weird or nothing, bro. I'm a half-ass patriot at best, but us as Americans, whether you black, white, blue, purple, I don't give a fuck what ethnicity or color you are, bro. If you're in America and you're inspired, really branch out and think about all of your horizons. Really widen those horizons, man. There are so many other things that you could pull from than just one source to create something new, fresh, and different. I'm not telling people they gotta fucking, oh, you gotta pick a side or this and that. You gotta listen to me. My word is law. I'm not one of those kinds of guys. I'm just a nigga on the internet that's into this shit that really ain't that good for the camera, even though I'm handsome and shit. You know what I mean? um, that can't really do the PC. Hey guys, what's going on? Check out my comic. I can't do all that. I'm a real person and I'm trying to connect with y'all on a real level. So I'm giving y'all something really raw and unfiltered with how I feel about this space and the overall from creators or fledglings or up and coming creators. You know what I mean? Um, I'm by no means a professional artist or writer or anything like that, but I've been doing this shit for a long time. Okay? So just hear me out. Maybe hopefully respect or even contest my opinions in the comments below. It's up to you. I'm going to respond to pretty much any and everything. If you be a dickhead about it, I'm just going to give you a gold star for participation. Um, Thanks for listening for those who sat through the whole thing of this. Once again, I make an American comic that is heavily inspired, yes, by American Saturday morning type superhero action cartoons, manga, anime, movies, comics, things of that nature. Parts of my life is in this story. You know, that's just how it goes. Once again, y'all, don't ever limit yourself and don't let nobody's opinions or thoughts limit you either. But that's all. I don't know what other type of video I got coming in the future, but I got dope shit coming. Shouts out to Radical Comics. There will be an official announcement from me soon about me finally being a part of that. So be on the lookout for that. Shouts out to my boy Trey Tunes. Go check out and read Leviathan New Genesis. Shouts out to my boy Ronnie Creates. Go check out and buy All Star. Check me out on Global Comics. Check out my Patreon for $1 to $3 today. You can get art nobody's ever seen, and you can get chapters that have not been released or completed yet, but you'll get all the dialogue and badassery that is. And yeah, follow me on my social media or whatever. And y'all have a good one. I'm out, y'all.